Hector, the warrior of Troy and the son of King Priam, stood as the defender of his city. He engaged in battles against the Greeks, who sought to reclaim their queen Helen, abducted by Hector's brother Paris. In his quest, Hector vanquished heroes, but faced a formidable adversary, Achilles, renowned as the greatest warrior of all. Achilles and Hector clashed on occasions. Neither could emerge victorious over the other. Achilles possessed swiftness and strength bestowed upon him by his divine mother, Thetis. On the other hand, Hector showcased bravery and wisdom fueled by his love for his wife, Andromache, and their son, Astyanax. Both warriors knew that destiny would bring them face to face one day in a duel that would determine their survival. That fateful day arrived when Hector led an assault on the ships with hopes of ending the war by setting them ablaze. He fought valiantly to reach the shore and was met by Ajax, who ranked second among fighters. The two engaged in a battle without either gaining an advantage over the other. However, just as dusk approached, a herald arrived to declare that both sides should cease fighting and exchange gifts as a sign of respect. Agreeing to this gesture, Hector and Ajax parted ways as friends. But Achilles was not happy with this truce. He had been sulking in his tent, refusing to fight, because he was angry with Agamemnon, the Greek leader, who had taken his slave girl Briseis. He wanted to avenge his friend Patroclus, who had been killed by Hector while wearing Achilles' armor. He decided to break the truce and attack Troy at night, hoping to catch Hector off guard. He put on his new armor, forged by Hephaestus, the god of fire, and mounted his chariot, driven by his loyal friend Automedon. He led his men to the gates of Troy, where he challenged Hector to a single combat. Hector heard his voice and came out of the city ready to face him. He left behind his wife, his son, and his father, who begged him not to go, but he felt that it was his duty and his destiny. The two heroes met on the plain and circled each other, looking for an opening. They threw their spears, but they both missed. They drew their swords and clashed in a fierce melee. They parried and struck, but they both wore impenetrable armor. They taunted and cursed, but they both had unshakable courage. They fought for a long time, but neither could wound the other. Then, Hector made a fatal mistake. He turned his back to Achilles and tried to run back to the city. He hoped that Apollo, the god of the sun, would protect him, but Achilles was faster, and he chased him down. He threw his spear and hit Hector in the heel, the only vulnerable spot in his body. Hector fell to the ground, mortally wounded. Achilles ran to him and gloated over his victory. He stripped Hector of his armor and tied his body to his chariot. He dragged him around the walls of Troy in front of his family and his people, who watched in horror and grief. He vowed to do the same every day until he had avenged Patroclus. But Hector had one last request. He asked Achilles to spare his body and return it to his father so that he could have a proper burial. He reminded Achilles that they were both mortal and that they both had families who loved them. He appealed to his pity and his honor and asked him to show some mercy. But Achilles was deaf to his words. He spat on his face and said that he would never give him back his body. He said that he would feed him to the dogs and the vultures, and that he would never rest until he had destroyed Troy and all its people. He left him there, bleeding and dying, and drove away in his chariot. Hector's last words were a prophecy. He said that Achilles would soon die too, by the hand of Paris and Apollo. He said that even if Achilles had no pity for him, the gods would have pity for Troy, and that one day his body would be returned to his father, and he would have a funeral worthy of a hero. He said that his name would live forever as a symbol of courage and loyalty. He closed his eyes and breathed his last.